This is the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G and the tempo setter play of the day. Ian Book to Ben Skoranek, 73 yards to the crib. Part of the behind whooping that the Fighting Irish put on the Pittsburgh Panthers today. Treavor Scales and Mike Golic Jr. in the chair for the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G Week 8 edition. We appreciate you joining us here. We are multi-pronged in our approach and our responsibilities. Our approach, Twitter, YouTube Live, Facebook, and the ESPN app. We are getting you caught up on all things that have happened, all the things that are going down currently, and the things to go down in this here college football arena. And one of those things going down, the lemon booty occurring in Bloomington, Indiana. Penn State currently with the lead, 21-20 in the fourth quarter. We will keep our eyes on that. Time is winding down. Penn State with the ball actually currently. We'll see if they can close this thing on out. But Big Ten bite. Mike, how you feel?
They're back in all the ways that you would imagine, Treavor, and Ohio State starting things off as we expected with Justin Fields going deep early and often in this one.
Without question. My man Justin Fields got it going early for the Buckeyes. Welcome to Big Ten play, by the way, Nebraska. You got Ohio State and Wisconsin to open this thing up, and Ohio State just opened up a can of whoop behind against y'all. Justin Fields, left side, 17-yard score. Big day for him, only one incompletion, and even that one was like more of a drop than anything, but the Ohio State defense showing up here late.
Yep, Adrian Martinez with the fumble, scoop, score. Ohio State really putting the nail in the coffin on this play. Giving Nebraska their credit, looked good early on, that first quarter especially, but too much Ohio State, too much Justin Fields. And how about this one? Maybe the play of the day in college football.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie to you. If you weren't here, we probably would have started with this play to open up the show. But like that was a little nod to you, just so we're all clear. I had to.
You mean Ben Skoranek wasn't as athletic looking as that? Is that what you're telling me, Trevor?
Maybe not. Maybe not. We move on. Clemson, Syracuse in our annual just weird game between these two teams of this season. And what wasn't weird was Travis Etienne getting it going early and often as well. Puts them up 16-0 in the first. And then the weirdness ensues. Syracuse blocks a punt. They would return that. And now they're down 17-7. They would cash in later in the earlier in the second quarter. And then under 9 minutes remaining, right before the break, Trevor Lawrence looking deep, getting picked, and this would wind up being his first pick six of his career.
Trying to get the full college experience in.
Exactly. No, he can't slight himself before he goes to the league. Rex Culpepper dropping back, looking and finding his man deep and rolling. Clemson now only with a 27-21 lead late in the third. But Clemson would find a way to kind of shut the door on this one, courtesy of their defense coming through with a little pressure.
Brent Venables and company. I, for one, am shocked. Defense winning Clemson games, I can't possibly imagine.
Who would have thunk it? By the way, Travis Etienne had a bit of a, scary moment, but he was here to remind us all that he is good to go. Despite taking the year at Clemson at running back, something I can't say I would have done, but that is besides the point. They win 47-21. Moving on, ACC action between North Carolina and NC State. The run game on the Tar Heels sideline is just immaculate, and this was a prime example of it.
Michael Carter and Javonte Williams have been absolutely dynamite this year, as has Sam Howell overall. All the expectations coming into this season, he has delivered through the early course despite the setback last week.
For NC State, though, here, Emeka Emezi, 42-yard pass from Ben Finley, brings them within one score.
Another Finley.
Yes, another. Yeah, that's actually a really good observation. But North Carolina would end up pulling away in this one, that high-powered offense that we just talked about, in that Sam Howell at the quarterback position, and then that two-headed beast in the backfield with Michael Carter and Javonte Williams here with the 27-yard score. UNC were going to roll 48-21. Marshall and Florida Atlantic, real quick highlight for you here. Number 22 at home, Brendan Knox. 58 yards scored, a big fella rumbling down the sideline, and we get to scrapping towards the end of this play, and that's probably the most exciting part of this game.
Oh, yes, let's go. Reach out to the screen to receive these hands.
They were there to provide them to Florida Atlantic, 20-9, your final between those two teams. Coastal Carolina hosting Georgia Southern, the number 25 team in the country at home here. Halfway through the first, Sam Denmark from the pistol, play action, left side, and bare booty open. 72-yard pass. Sam Denmark to the crib, puts Coastal Carolina up 7-0, and then Georgia Southern. Whenever we show a punt play, it's one of two things, right? Either a block punt or somebody is taking this bad boy to the house. Georgia Southern's Wesley Kennedy III would do the latter. 60 yards down the sideline, found his teammates, had a wall, and got in there.
Anytime you hit back on the joystick, you're getting on the highlights.
Yeah, no, that's a slight stunt to say the least. Cameron Brown, 2-yard reception for the score. Coastal would run away with it 28-14. And now, the fun part of the highlights for one Michael Golic Jr. Notre Dame taking on Pitt. And just two quick plays here because we want to get into more of a discussion. The first being a Ben Skoranek 34-yard touchdown, shedding off tacklers. Then the one that we started this show off, Ben Skoranek from Ian Book, 73 yards. Initially, I was like, that's got to be OPI, right? I mean, the DB was looking for his damn self. But Notre Dame will go up 14-3. They roll 45-3 by the end of this one. But I swear you wouldn't be able to tell from the way the two Notre Dame fans I was watching this game with were assessing every single down of this bad boy. So I want to kind of get into it. Did we finally see a performance from Notre Dame, Mike, that vaults them into the conversation of the college football playoff firmly at this point?
I think so. Notre Dame has always, especially offensively this season, been about the potential. I've told people this is a team that right now, if you were drawing up the playoff today, you'd have maybe a hard time justifying based on the offense. But it's got the signs of a team that as we now get into the month of November coming up, going to start playing their best football, and today was a big step forward, seeing Ian Book cut it loose downfield, which is something going back, did well against Florida State, did not do nearly as much of last week against Louisville.
Now, he got a little help from his defense, right? We'll address that a little bit further, but what is that defense going to have to do down the road in order to kind of maintain this level of play and this level of impressiveness on a national scale?
What we saw from them, they've been one of the top defenses in the country based on efficiency, but only one takeaway through the air going into this game. Got 3 interceptions on this one. They're going to need more of that. An attacking style defense has to give the ball back to an offense that's trying to find life right now.
The other takeaway that I want to get into as we are in Trev's Takeaways, a college football show presented by AT&T 5G. Ohio State, we saw that they doorsed Nebraska, but towards the end of that game, scored a late touchdown. And for the degenerates out there, we had a little conversation to have about what it did for those that were for entertainment purposes only, right? Like that sort of discussion. But here late, 21 seconds left, game well in hand, and Ryan Day and them decided to run one more play. You know, backups are in, they're getting a little work. It puts them up eventually like 52-14 at that point. But it was just unnecessary, which is the major point of this discussion. Ryan Day would come out and apologize for the score late. And I just kind of want to get your opinion because I have feelings about, you know, going out there and just, you're going to have to stop me as an offense at the end of the day, but there is a level of superfluousness like with this.
This is something I never cared about as a player. Right. I'll say that. It's one of those, if you're walking the dog on us, like you said, I expect us to go out there and stop you from beating our you-know-what at some point. But coaches don't control that on the field portion. They control the decision-making, all of these elements that end up getting taken personal. And I think in this instance, Ryan Day realized, I got lost in, I got a freshman out there. I want to get him reps versus, oh, we just need to shut this thing down. We've gone too far now.
No doubt. Like, I'm not telling you necessarily to take any, but and that's where it's like a weird discussion too, because like when you're down there on the goal line, like, do you expect people to just take a knee for the sake of taking a knee and stuff like that? It's just.
And this is a weird season where the reps are going to be more valuable than ever. And as you look towards Ohio State, and you're saying depth matters more than ever this season, you can justify it. It's one of those things I'm not really going to lose sleep over.
So what we talked about, that late touchdown wound up being a push for the over-under at 68, the total for both teams scoring. And then the extra point put it at 69. That put it at the over. Wasn't very nice of just for anybody involved, frankly.
Scott Van Pelt and Stanford Steve are going to have fun with that.
Yeah, they will have a good old time with that for bad beats. Now, speaking of the bettors out there, more degenerate action. Somebody a Clemson fan, I'm assuming, put down, I want to make sure I got this right, 86 racks on the Clemson Tigers to win. The odds were 100,000, minus 100,000. So he only got $8.60 for putting up 86 racks for this bet. So my question is, how hurt were you for this $8.60? You had to put this out there.
No. This is the other way. How ballin' are you that just to feel a little bit alive, you go chasing $8.60? Let me live in your, I want to step inside your world. I want to live in your shoes. I want to, quite frankly, see your kitchen, because I'm sure it's lovely that you go out there putting $8,600 down just so you can feel that little bit of life for pocket change.
See, you say you want to be around an individual like that. No, I don't need no parts of that necessary adrenaline rush. Like, if you need adrenaline that bad, I don't need to be anywhere near you, because you are on some other stuff. I guarantee it.
That is true. What have you done in your life to get to that point?
This is
made a lot of money, apparently. Yeah.
Without question. This is the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. Our responsibilities, again, getting you caught up in everything going down currently. Penn State and Indiana in a battle that no one expected. But the other part that we're getting into, as far as our ABC primetime game right here on ABC, you can catch it, authenticate it, get your cable provider logged in and everything, and we will be watching with you. This matchup between Minnesota and Michigan, hyped as all outdoors, and understandably so. We want to get a little bit of info from those on site, and it begins with a very chilly Maria Taylor.
Big Ten football is back.
We're thrilled to play. Most excited about seeing our team compete.
I'm ready to show everybody how good we actually are. The sky's the limit for this team.
Gross misfire by your boy. We'll get to Maria Taylor in just a second. We had to run that montage because that was special. Now, Maria, holla at us, please. Here.
What's up, Twitter fam? First of all, I wanted to show you that I'm in 16 layers, and there's a guy with no shirt on. I don't know, his blood must be different than mine. But the good news is that Big Ten football is back, and our nightcap is Minnesota and Michigan. It's been great talking to coaches and players leading up to this one, because there's so many unknowns. For Michigan, they only have 9 starters coming back, but we know what to expect from a Don Brown defense. I just talked to PJ Fleck down here on the field, and he mentioned that, listen, we know about 40% of what Don Brown is going to show at us with this Michigan defense, but there's another 60% that we're going to be working on, and we might see ghosts in the beginning, but sideline adjustments will be important. So what we know for sure for Minnesota is that Rashad Bateman is back after opting out and then opting in. Tanner Morgan is back, and he threw more touchdowns than any other quarterback in Minnesota history, so there's a lot of positives on that Minnesota sideline. For both Jim Harbaugh and PJ Fleck, they almost echoed the same sentiment, and that was we tried to make it fun for our kids because there were so many unknowns. It'll be interesting to see this game kick off tonight. I'll try to stay warm. He's gone. Talk to you guys later.
Mike, were you one to ever warm up without a shirt on, like despite the weather?
No. I was like everyone else. I thought I was real tough and didn't wear sleeves, but I kept my shirt on for different reasons.
We're a body positive show here, just so everybody's clear. I was of the same accord. Your boy was not afraid to wear some sleeves, but I do want to update the folks on what's going down currently between Penn State and Indiana. There was a touchdown up for review. So that's why you see that Indiana is currently down by 8. I believe that it was ruled a no touchdown, but the Indiana Hoosiers are knocking on the doorstep of potentially making this a 2-1 or tie game. So in any case, just to kind of rewind what we just talked about with Maria, she touched on Rashad Bateman and everything that's going for the Minnesota program. And my matchup that I'm watching, Vincent Gray, a former nickel corner for the Michigan defense, now moving into a starting role, got 60% of the snaps last season, and we know what Rashad Bateman is capable of. He was pro-ready in a whole set of different regards, and now he elects to come back, get one more season in, and I'm excited to see what that Tanner Morgan and Rashad Rashad Bateman connection can do going forward for this Minnesota offense.
It's going to be exciting. And Rashad Bateman coming back, being involved in football, and Maria had a great conversation with him about what this season means to him in so many regards is interesting. Trevor, you know this. I'm looking forward towards the trenches on this one. Because you've got Joe Milton, all the excitement and the hype around him in this Michigan program. They think he's finally the one to unlock this. Jalen Mayfield is your only starter coming back on an offensive line that didn't just graduate 4 guys, graduated 4 all-conference players, graduated 4 guys that were draft picks into the NFL. So losing that kind of quality up front at receiver, Ronnie Bell, really the only weapon that you've got coming back on the outside that's a bona fide. So can all the talent that they recruit there finally come together in the way Jim Harbaugh's offense is supposed to?
Yeah, we've heard it said time and time again that Joe Milton is the first quarterback that Jim Harbaugh has, like, from the ground up. Like, this is his guy, so we're excited to sort of see what he can make of this exact scenario. And when it comes to quarterback play at Michigan, it's been a struggle because we've had Shea Patterson and those of the like that just haven't necessarily been able to get the things done, especially on the largest of stages. That's why Michigan sort of gets this rap of not being a successful program because of the behind whoopings they've received from certain teams in their own conference.
Yeah, it's all about Ohio State, right? Like, it's the most uncomfortable thing in the room. Michigan has the unfortunate distinction of, like, the Eastern Conference Toronto Raptors when LeBron James was out there. Like, your only real crime is not being able to move past a program that's in the groove of one of the best in the country. But when you've got the resources, prestige, history, and the coach they have, those excuses don't matter.
No, they fly right on out the window. Nobody from Big Blue, Go Blue, is trying to hear all that. Like, they just want you to either get that win over Ohio State and move on, or we will move on from you. Like, it's really just no other option for them. But as we continue on the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G, Treavor Scales, Gojo holding you down. And look, so we touched on a little bit on Mike having played a little ball. I played a little ball myself. And a drill in particular in that montage that we saw. Interesting, to say the least, right? Like, standard tackling drill. And to me, it was benign when I saw it in the clip. But our producer asked, is this drill as fun as it looks? And it is, until you got beads all in your underwear.
That's the thing. It's like going to the beach. Like, going to the beach is fun until you get home and there's sand in every nook and cranny for the next few days. It's the same thing. We used to have, like, obviously, I was big, one of the big boys. I didn't get to do the fun version of this. We got to do it with, like, cut blocks and stuff. And it's the same thing. I am already sweaty and out of breath. Now you're asking me to land on my belly and be sweaty, out of breath, and covered in beads.
You know what? Like, I think that's the major takeaway. In isolation, yes, I can tell you that this drill is fun. When it comes to all the other factors under which I'm probably doing this drill, no, ain't nothing about this fun. I'm tired.
The thing to really note is the chute in the background. Having to go under that is the true nightmare and the true hellscape in all of this.
Without question. We hid that from y'all. That's not a discussion that anybody wants to have on this show. But to go back to the game just real quick, let's get these picks off, make sure we all understand what side of this here matchup we stand. Gojo, I'll give you the floor first. Who do you think is walking out with the win in this one?
I'm taking Michigan in this one, and this is no shade to Minnesota. Tanner Morgan coming back. We talked about the aforementioned Rashad Bateman, and what they've done on offense is impressive. But Michigan, again, defensive talent has never been an issue there. They're going to be able to harass the quarterback. This isn't the time I'm worried about Michigan giving up the goods. I think we see all of the things they're excited about with Joe Milton. What about you, Trev?
I think I have Michigan as well, and it feels like a push of a game, really, because these two teams have their pluses on each respective side of the ball. Like, we even talked about the Rashad Bateman-Vincent Gray matchup that, like, everybody is keen on, because that defense, every single member of it would speaks highly of Vincent Gray, his capabilities as a corner that was in the nickel position and has moved into that starting role. But I do think Michigan just sort of gets it, because early on in the season, they typically find a way to win these types of games. We have one more pick. It is our guest picker from the control room. One time for Isaac Farabee up in the control room. His pick was Minnesota. Similarly to me, he said it's kind of a push, but his reasoning was a Minnesota win would do more for the Big Ten on the national scale. And I want to get your thought, like, How do you feel about that notion?
It would do more on a national scale because on Monday on Chiney and Golic Jr., 4 to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio, we'd be talking a lot about, is Jim Harbaugh now the seat even hotter already if you're giving it up to someone that's not Ohio State in that conference? So, and I can understand the pick from Isaac too. Like, this is experience versus talent, right? Row the boat, PJ Fleck, all the guys they have coming back versus Michigan, only 9 returning starters between the two sides. But yeah, no, it would do a lot for us. So Sports Talk Radio, help me.
Shouts to the content. We need that at all times. But let's talk a little bit more football. We'll continue with this Big Ten discussion because, again, we talking about this Penn State-Indiana game that's still going on. We're watching it out the corner of my eye. That's why you see me not addressing this camera right now. Like, this is very deliberate, and I understand that. But here's what the situation is. Indiana wound up scoring, went for 2, tied ball game, 20 and change seconds left, and Penn State with the football. It looks like we're going to head to overtime, but ain't no telling because this game has just been a mess to begin with.
For as good as Ohio State looked to start off the Big Ten's run, and as much as we're looking forward to the nightcap, what we saw in this game and what we saw with Rutgers and Michigan State is a reminder of what week 1 for a team that had to stop and then restart its season is going to look like in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and that's just the weirdest part about all of these games, right? I think we all know that this season itself is going to be happening. You're going to have to take this one in isolation just because of all the factors that have gone into just getting people on the field. But I digress. More football to talk about. Tech taking on Wake Forest, another ACC matchup for us. And Sam Hartman.
He can scoop.
Yeah, Sam Hartman can. God, that was so perfectly placed. Wake Forest up 7-0 there. Hendon Hooker to James Mitchell, 39 yards. And Tech ties things up at 10. Next up, just before halftime, Kenneth Walker III, 6-yard score. Wake Forest would seal the deal with field goals. That's why we're skipping over the second half, essentially 23-16, your final. Back to the Big Ten, Rutgers and Michigan State. Mel Tucker's first outing as head coach for the Michigan State program. And Rutgers, man, just proverbial losers in that conference, found a way to get a little something done.
Greg Schiano, who says you can't come home, right?
Absolutely. Second play here, Jalen Naylor, a 30-yard reception for the Sparty to cut into the lead. 28-20 after that. Then, Shameen Jones, 14-yard reception, your dagger for Rutgers.
10 turnovers combined in this game, Trevor. That is not a typo. That is not a misprint.
They snapped a 21-game conference losing streak. And the SEC matchup of the day wasn't much of a matchup at all because Bama tends to just doors people like this. Mac Jones, heck of a day. The important note, though, Bama. Down, Waddle, broken ankle, done for the season. Nick Saban, some weird words regarding his decision because he heard it on returning a kick that was deep into the end zone, and he came out and said, like, that's why. He didn't say that's why. I don't want to misrepresent what he had to say, but
basically said your coach not to bring it out from there, but did overflowingly say this is devastating. We all feel terrible. Above all else, the feelings certainly dismay for one of the most exciting players in college football. And Alabama's got no shortage in them in that wide receiver room, Trev, but Jalen Waddle was one that had so many pro scouts especially excited for what he had a chance to do on Sundays. And we know we're all looking to see these guys go get paid what they're worth in these situations. And Jalen Waddle wishing him the best on a speedy recovery.
No doubt about that. So, again, Bama rolls, no surprise there. We'll see what they will do with that high-powered offense down just one of the weapons, right? They still have Devontae Smith, they still have Najee Harris, and they still have Mac Jones running point at the middle of it all. This is the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. And, Mike, kind of want to get into the takeaways for this round of highlights and your assessment of the Big Ten as we see the shenanigans going down in Bloomington. How do you feel this Big Ten conference can insert themselves into the college football playoff conversation?
I think it's always been about Ohio State. Right. Michigan and Minnesota will give us, I think, the true barometer for the rest of the conference as we're going to look and see how this stratifies. But this is what I expected from every conference this season is because of the stress of this offseason, if you brought back a quality quarterback, your same head coach and play caller for the most part, and veteran experience on a team, you're you're so overwhelmingly ahead of the 8 ball. Because you know this, college football is so much more about development, what you do in the offseason, getting these guys going from young men bodies into grown man bodies in college weight room and that time under task on the field. And when you lose all of that, you stunt growth in ways that are hard to overcome just getting back out on the field the way they have.
No doubt, no doubt. And I think it's also, too, for this Big Ten Conference conversation, I was surprised, and I still am surprised to see what's happening between Penn State and Indiana. For those watching here with us, Penn State missed a 57-yard field goal at the end of regulation. We are headed into OT. We will keep you updated as we progress along here. And I want to I think the biggest thing that we were always concerned with when it comes to a conversation about like how the cream rises to the top in every given conference, how good will Ohio State look knowing that it's such a massive chasm between them and the next best team? And I don't think that there's any concern, courtesy of the continuity that you pointed out with that roster, but I at least expected to have somebody else kind of vault themselves into the conversation to kind of give us the true barometer for what they are on a national scale.
And I think, you know what, we look at this, and shame on me for not mentioning this. I understand Lovie Smith and that Illini outfit aren't going to excite anyone, but what we saw from Wisconsin, their quarterback stepping up in a big way, I think started 17 for 17 at the beginning of that game. A Wisconsin offense that may have a dynamic quarterback at the helm now finally. I know Jack Cohn, for a lot of people last year, progressed that forward a little bit, but I think that's the one. We looked at them, Penn State, and Michigan is really the teams next looking in. Minnesota certainly in that. So that matchup tonight combined with what we saw from Wisconsin, and I think you've already seen Penn State, depending on what happens here, can keep themselves alive in this conversation, came in with the ranking and the expectations, but I look at Wisconsin and Michigan as the ones that people are really going to look for to see. Can you elevate yourself into that tier based on what you can recruit, the talent and depth that you can have in the situations that you need it?
You talk about recruiting in areas like that, it's got to be incredibly difficult, knowing everybody in that conference is looking toward the top of that conference to take their talents, for lack of a better phrase, to the Ohio States, to the Michigans, and you're sort of scraping around those recruiting areas, those recruiting hotbeds, just trying to secure your talent.
It's so weird, Trev, because we treat this like NFL divisions almost, how you recruit or you build your team to beat your division in the NFL. In the college, you do it to beat your conference. Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, and a select few programs like Oklahoma in the Big 12, you recruit to beat everybody. You recruit nationally, speed that the other programs in the Big Ten don't have, to ultimately put yourself in a different tier.
So that's where the Big Ten, in our opinion, sort of shakes out as we work towards the college football playoffs. Speaking of, let's have a little fun.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, liftoff.
All right, bet. So that's your not-so-subtle reminder that we got Fitz up out of the paint for this edition of the College Football Show, presented by AT&T 5G. Treavor Scales, Gojo holding you down, and we're coming off the heels of a Big Ten discussion. And as you've seen on this show, we rank your top 5 teams using very fancy technology, and we get to react to each other's top 5. So we can get it cracking right now. Gojo, I will give you the floor first to lay out your top 5.
All right, going to lay out the top 5 here. Should come as no surprise to anybody. The Clemson Tigers holding it down at number 1. Trevor Lawrence, despite the weird Syracuse game every year, still an unstoppable force of nature's fury. Number 2, also pretty easy one for me. Alabama today, obviously unfortunate, the loss of Jalen Waddle. That's certainly a huge wrench in their plans, but still an incredible team. Number 3, I'm probably going to upset some people that are near and dear to me, but I have to put Ohio State at number 3. After what we've seen already from them through week 1 in here. For me, holding it down at number 4, Notre Dame Fighting Irish here. Impressive win today against the Pitt super weapon. And then number 5, I'm going to stick with Georgia. They didn't fall far in the AP poll after that loss to Alabama. Really impressive team. You've got Stetson Bennett IV, which is a human being I did not expect to meet during college football season, that has come onto the scene and held it down well as Georgia transitions to the next phase of its quarterback.
Our beloved mailman down in Athens, Georgia. Yeah, no, and I don't disagree with you much at all, right? So, in fact, we're going to give you the thumbs up. As the grading scale goes, we have positive and negative, very simple based. It is Nick Saban with the rare smile for Gojo's rankings.
That's probably after he stomped me out in the title game. So that looks familiar.
See, we don't bring that up. It's okay. He can make that joke. No one else can make that joke on this set.
You can't hurt me if I hurt myself first.
It's such a real sort of state of mind. I love it. But again, I do not disagree in large part with your top 5. I'll go Clemson in that 1 spot, Bama in the 2 spot for those exact same reasons. Ohio State, despite having played only 1 game, looked dang impressive, so we'll ride with them at 3. In the 4 slot, this is where I differ. I actually go Georgia because of what I've seen from them throughout the season defensively specifically. Vaults them over Notre Dame for me, and Notre Dame will actually be in that 5 slot, having seen the performance that they put together. Rushing-wise, I know that they can do their thing offensively. I am still concerned with Ian Book and just the mercurial play that he seems to have on a play-by-play basis, especially sitting in the room watching with you.
It's a stressful existence, but just on principle, I have to go the sad response on that one, and this is one that will get Notre Dame fans back in my good graces who recognize the slain Virginia fan that Will Fuller took down when the Notre Dame Fighting Irish took them down. And actually, it's interesting you bring up defense because when I look at that, Georgia's defense is such a wall of humanity. The front sevens there we know are so well documented. Notre Dame has a defense that I feel very comfortable bragging on, and this has been true in the last few years. We got fast on defense. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at number 6, an all-world linebacker, Kyle Hamilton at safety. Like, watching Notre Dame get speed at big skill positions on defense warms my heart so much.
But I do want to ask you about just creating turnovers. That's something that they've been incapable of doing to this point, but today we see at least 2 picks thrown by the opposing quarterback. Can they keep something like that going as far as the turnover margin goes?
I think so, and I think that's what they've been looking to be on defense. They love to heat them up on defense. We see plenty of zone blitzes. The third down sub packages are all there. They've been waiting for this kind of game now. Joey Yellen on the other side, backup quarterback for Pitt, certainly helps in that effort, but I think it's one of those things, especially as a defense, putting yourself in position for those turnovers is half the battle, and then seeing the ball go through the basket, for lack of a better term, brings it home.
Without question. Now, when it comes to the top 5 overall, we're talking about just 1 appearance from the Big Ten, and I think we're going to be settled in with that thought process given the performances that we've seen across that conference. But who's to say that somebody doesn't come along in this 8+1 game format and kind of make a push to kind of give Ohio State a challenge in that +1 weekend of the conference championship?
Yeah, that's going to be, I think, the interesting part in all this as we look and react to week 1. And remembering, the Big Ten just came off an even more confused version of the offseason, so we expected Ohio State to do this. Penn State, Michigan, Minnesota and Michigan, who we're going to see tonight, those are the interesting ones to see. Can anyone elevate themselves as the season goes on and give them a challenge?
Without question. So those are our top 5s. Feel free to yell at us on Twitter. It's a vacuum that I don't get any feedback from anyway. So there you have it. Minnesota, Michigan, your primetime matchup on ABC. Make sure you log in, get your cable provider authenticated and whatnot, and we will watch with you. But an important update from the Gopher sideline, right, Mike?
Yeah, saw this courtesy of Pete Thamel at Yahoo Sports that Minnesota going to be undermanned tonight. Going to be down there starting kicker, punter, kickoff specialist, as well as multiple offensive linemen and a linebacker. So something to watch there.
Yeah, we're going to see if they can get something going. Otherwise, Big 12 action, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. On the lowest of keys, a dang good game. Chuba Hubbard, 32-yard run to put the Cowpokes up 14-7. And that Oklahoma State offense has been different this year, right? Like, we expected such a reliance on Chuba, but they've been able to make things shake otherwise.
Absolutely. Between that and a defense, you've had a very interesting and disruptive Oklahoma State outfit.
An outlier in the Big 12. Breece Hall, 66-yard run. I don't know where the edge of the Oklahoma State defense was, but it wasn't there. 66 yards to the crib to tie things up at 14. And then Spencer Sanders, 14-yard run, right sideline. He gets in. Oklahoma State would take the lead and would not look back. 24-21, your final. And now, special segment of the show for your resident country boy. The College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. Holy cow, the best of the day, Mike. I'm sure you've kind of been around here to kind of get the lay of the land of the drill, and I'm excited to do it. So.
I'm excited to be here for it, man. Let's get into some cow stuff.
Let's get into some cow stuff. That had a weird connotation, but
the Big Ten is back.
Yes, Big Ten back. Let's see. Ohio State starting us off. And, Jackson Smith in Jigba with this control midair is insane.
Looking down at his own foot is such a stunt. It's unbelievable.
It makes no sense that you have the presence of mind to look down and say, okay, where's my foot? Can I sneak this bad boy in there? Boop. It was so funny because like the call on the game, nobody really knew. They just assumed it incomplete. This is a 100 play if I'd ever seen one, by the way.
Easy money.
It's without a doubt a 100. Like did we have the double move? I don't think we heard a double move. It might have just been a single move, but like give me 2 moves.
2 moves.
Regular.
Not 1 move, 2 move.
Yes, 2 move indeed. Your turn.
Yeah, my turn on this one. We'll go back to Georgia Southern. We saw this earlier, and as you mentioned, when punts are on the show, good things are happening. And Georgia Southern's Wesley Kennedy III. My favorite part right here, the back on the joystick. That was always my favorite thing to try and pull off when I was failing at NCAA 2014. Bring it back soon. But you get a look. Bobbling the punt is usually actually like a weird sign of good luck for freak athletes. And I think our friend Wesley Kennedy falls into that category.
My man pulling off the back juke in a crowd, that's like the ultimate flip. Like you can do it on the sideline anytime you want to.
You got to give this one up at 19 there, maybe only for the bobbled catch on the front end there.
Like
Style points for the end, though, in the finish, and the fisticuffs that followed, you pointed out.
Yes, without question. You got to get the hands working. Next play wasn't necessarily great. It's one of those, oh no, okay, cool. We can make this work.
Oh, my God.
Jordan Travis from Florida State. Mesh point just not great. Picks it up, scoops it, juice out a couple cats, finds his way into the end zone. Massively impressive for just maintaining sanity. But we got to dock you for fumbling at the mesh point. That's an 80 for me.
That's a fair point, but man, the full-on dribble, I see quarterbacks do that before games all the time, and it blows my mind.
Yes, they are magicians with the football, and I want no parts of putting the ball on the ground intentionally to see if I can pull it off.
That's a fair point, former running back, and you got to be a little unnerved by that. But let's leave the ground game and go back to the air game right here. Flag football, Ken. How about dude going up with the one hand right here? Unexpected. Like, I wasn't sure where this highlight was going at the beginning because it's a little grainy footage, just like seeing Bigfoot. And then all of a sudden he goes up. Anytime you catch it over the top like that, I got love for you there. Now, I got to leave it in the 80s because there's also no threat of violence. And that is one of the things that changes most football plays and the elements involved.
Another thing I got to dock points for, I don't think that was a real football. Like, it was entirely too small for my man just to reach. And when he presented it,
you thought it was like a Nerf whistler?
Yes, exactly. It was. If we had stop full on that joint, you just hear something howling right down the middle of the field. Next up, Arkansas State and Auburn. We are highlighting those that are getting physical out there. He got 3.
Jonathan Adams Jr., go on with ya. Great team on call for this game, by the way, that was highlighting that one. Shout out to Matt Berry and Marty Smith hanging out with me on Thursday.
Show you right. And we continue the physical play. You saw split zone here. And yes, positive game, but dog, you go in there with that type of gusto on a back block, I'm with it. So 90 for all of the efforts involved on putting people on their rear ends in the middle of a play.
Oh, my God in heaven. That man, by the way, also moonlights as a Wildcat quarterback. So live in fear, SEC defenses.
Scary. So scary. Next up, what we got, Mike?
We got a little Justin Fields getting loose at the end of the play here. We talked so much about him showing off the arm strength early and on the fancy toe tap action we saw at the beginning. But how about circle right here? We talked about back button on the joystick already. Hitting circle down near the goal line. Justin Fields picking up right where he left off. Peak efficiency in the young college football season for a team we expected to be the best. But that's just it. It's the weight of expectations here, Trev, that has me only in the 70s right here. I just look at Justin Fields, and I expect a lot right now. This is one of the most efficient college football seasons we saw last year from a quarterback, and so I know he's got this in the bag, and I know I want to leave him room to grow.
You've come to expect that type of stuff from Justin Fields, and I can't blame you. Okay, I thought you were going to be a little soft on the grading how we started out, and then you hit me with that right hook out of nowhere. Tank Bigsby gets a solid grade just off the name alone, but what he did to that defender in the downright disrespect of ushering him to the field turf with his right hand, man, we're going to celebrate this a couple times. Because few things are more satisfying than getting the stiff arm off like that. 83, which I feel is solid because it wasn't that long of a run, but he did have peak disrespect at one point, so I'm with it.
Trevor, your favorite thing as a running back, is it truck stick, juke, or stiff arm?
I think the stiff arm, because of just how close it is to mushing somebody.
Yeah.
And like with that sort of element of it, it's just so disrespectful.
That is. There's a heightened level. If we were grading this instead of on a moo scale, on a disrespect scale, that would be pushing the bounds at 100.
Correct, without question. Now, we did the best of the best. It's time to get some jokes off. bruh. That is the only reaction we had to a myriad of these plays because when you watch them go down, you just can't help but wonder what the hell went wrong. And it starts out, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin and them, fancy fake field goal. And
it's always worse when it goes wrong with a kicker too, right? Like someone's so like the fancy flip, word to Les Miles on that, but
it's just it had no hope from the start. Next up, NC State, wide open touchdown and oh no, picked. Again, that's just bad.
Imagine being the offensive coordinator on that one and watching this beautiful play you just designed end in ruin like
No, hold on, because like the quarterback got to be ticked off too because I get that minus in the film room. And like, nah, hold on, player. That hit him in his hands. That's not on me. Next up, Javian Hawkins. Fumble.
Oh, wow.
Trying to get the first down, and he decided, I think like instant gratification is the term for when you get that sort of instant reward, and he's instant punishment, I guess, is the converse of that.
And you see his lineman over there, he's like, buddy, we're going to need you for the next series. You're really good. You're really fast and strong. Save this somewhere else. Coach is still going to cuss you out.
Oh, and this one here. Seeing this one in real time. I know that you were a fan of this, but we all had to get the jokes off on the personal protector on the right side.
Yeah, so. Shout out to Isaiah Foskey for the punt block and then the careful scoop and score. But I was one of the meat guys on the shield back there. You don't pass up color to get to color in this situation.
I don't care. We talked about the count. You know, you have your assignment. You figure out the numbers on each side of the football and everything. And I understand you have those responsibilities. But at the end of the day, just go play football. You see somebody running at you with ill intentions, block him. last play. Kentucky player gets absolutely mollywopped into the sideline.
Oh, no.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, no.
Did it? Oh, my goodness.
He gets trucked into the opponent.
And it's just a ruckus? Wait a minute.
See, this is my thing, and this is what would happen on the other side is if you were a running back, Trev, and you got hit over in the opposing sideline, you immediately got a whole host of your offensive linemen coming for you. Someone's got to come help their man.
That's what I'm saying. Like, come get me. Please, help me. That's really what the takeaway is from that last one. And I don't understand why nobody was there for his defense. That's
the grading in the film room right there. I said, where were all of you when I needed you?
Laser pointer comes out. Laser pointer comes out just for that. Just for that. More football to talk through some more highlights, beginning with Oklahoma and TCU. Spencer Rattler settling in very nicely. Gary Patterson known to throw some looks at quarterbacks with his fancy defense, but Spencer Rattler was finding people wide open.
Mims.
That being Marvin Mims, 50-yard score, and more Mims here, 61 yards to the crib. This would be the dagger.
Move in the house.
Yes.
Mims. That's all I can think of. Every time I hear that last name, I am instantly transported to simpler times.
You're contractually obligated to mention Mims. Shouts to him. Auburn and Ole Miss, we saw a little something from them earlier, but Seth Williams is always someone we should highlight. That man had one of the most disrespectful plays in all college football, like early on in the season, and him and Bo Nix seem to have made up. Yeah. That was like a concern for a lot of people. But Auburn winds up winning that one. Bo Nix, solid day at the office, 23 for 30, and that touchdown you saw there.
Ole Miss can't play normal games. It's just not humanly possible. No. The minute Lane Kiffin pulled into town, you committed to a lifetime of very strange occurrences.
The College Football Show, presented by AT&T 5G. We have this update for you. The final, oh my goodness, Penn State loses by 1. And do we have that highlight? Can we run it? Or are we still building in? Or that's okay. We'll tease that. We'll tease that for those wondering on this here show. We will have that play for you later on. But that is your final score. Sean Clifford, a rough day at the office. They seem to have overcome it in some regards, Mike, but just weren't able to kind of pull through at the end there.
I mean, just what a strange game, and one that almost got given away after Indiana had the touchdown to tie it in regulation. Their kicker botched the swim kick and gave Penn State a good look, what ended up being a 57-yard try at the end of regulation. But, man, they, every step of the way, a classic open to a Big Ten season. Indiana playing spoiler,
when
baby.
You pulled up the play-by-play and the drive chart, it was like punt, turnover or some other regard. Rarely ever did you see a touchdown pop up. It was just insanity. And I think like the biggest discrepancy in the offensive production between these two teams, and that at one point Indiana had below 100 yards passing, and we were in the fourth quarter, and they still find themselves on the winning side of this matchup.
Overall, Penn State 488 total yards to Indiana's 211, and yet we walk out in a win. College football now officially back with Indiana doing wild stuff on your TV on a Saturday.
That is the perfect way to do that. And as we move on right here on the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G, Treavor Scales, Mike Golic Jr. here with you, and joining us now, Mark Sanchez in the building, back one more again. We appreciate you taking some time to kick it with us. And as you watched that game unfold between Indiana and Penn State, your takeaways from that matchup, how did you feel about this Penn State program going forward potentially?
Well, most importantly, you guys know this as former players, but the allow the other team to score, your offense has to know what's going on. You got to understand situations. That's a crucial situation for James Franklin and his team. He's got to communicate that to these players. They let him score, and as soon as the running back scored, he's like, oh, wait, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, no kidding, you shouldn't have done that, because then they wouldn't have scored, got the 2-point conversion, and you wouldn't be in a world of hurt right now, potentially ruining your entire season. So literally one play, and that could have wrecked the whole thing.
It's amazing, especially given a short season, how much every game is going to matter. Like this ramps up the intensity. So, Mark, as we look forward to tonight, Minnesota and Michigan, two of the other premier teams in this conference, what are you looking for going into this matchup?
Well, listen, the emphasis is on Joe Milton. Obviously, Harbaugh's on the hot seat. But for Josh Gaddis and this Michigan offense, what are you going to do to replace that entire receiver room that's now gone, whether it's to the NFL draft, whether it's opt-outs or transfers? Everybody's gone at receiver, so who's going to help Joe Milton? I hope it's a steady diet of Charbonnet and Hassan Haskins at running back. I hope they really ease Joe Milton into the game and don't just throw him to the wolves. And then on the other side, it's Tanner Morgan, it's Rashad Bateman. Tanner Morgan's probably the happiest guy around just because he opted back into the season. I'm talking about Rashad Bateman at receiver. This kid's one of the top receivers. And after watching TJ Waddle today, man, that's got to be scary for him to think, man, I'm one of the top 1 or 2 or 3 receivers. And after he got hurt, maybe if he, posts a couple 100-yard games, a couple touchdowns in these early games, he might opt out himself and just say, hey, man, I'm out. See you later.
Understandably so. Mark Sanchez joining the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. We have your live look-in going. Michigan and Minnesota getting after it on ABC. Make sure you log in, authenticate with your cable provider and all that fun stuff, and you can watch along with us. I want to get back to that Rashad Bateman and Tanner Morgan conversation and that dynamic, because how thrilled do you have to be to know you have that connection point back, and what does that do for you in an offseason that really was just atypical in every single fashion?
No doubt. Any kind of congruency or any kind of players that return, you want that returning starter. You don't want to have to be in Harbaugh's situation and have to groom a new quarterback. He might be your own quarterback, and you might have been grooming him for the last couple of years, but he's just never done it before. You want guys with experience, and that's what Tanner Morgan has. He was, I want to say, either first or second in yards per attempt, yards per game, and then his quarterback rating was only second to Justin Fields last year. So this kid's more than capable, and they're going to be a special combination all year long.
Mark, I'm curious, as we talk about special combinations experience and guys coming back through the course of the season, we did get our first look at the team that everybody expects to represent the Big Ten today in the Ohio State Buckeyes, taking down Nebraska with big points. What did you see from Justin Fields coming back off one of the more efficient college football seasons in history?
Well, I mean, diet-wise, apparently he's on this all-vegan diet.
Yeah.
New year, new me, right? And he finally stuck to this diet, apparently, and he looks slim, he looks trim, he looks solid. God, he threw some balls today that were just frozen ropes down the field after looking off safeties and then just dropping dimes on Olave and receivers in the back of the end zone. He threw one really almost goalpost high, and the receiver jumps up and taps his foot barely in the back of the end zone. It was incredible. So he's got a great cast of characters on offense. And then the real question was early on, Nebraska and Martinez, they had them on the ropes a little bit. It was a tight game there for about a quarter and a half, and we were trying to figure out, okay, what's Ohio State's defense going to look like? They lost 4 guys in the NFL draft, including Chase Young, 4 guys in the top 100 in last year's draft. So who's going to step up? Who's going to fill those shoes? Jeff Okudah, those guys leave, and they look just like the Ohio State of old after a couple quarters of warming up, and then they end up just thrashing Nebraska like we thought would happen. So I think they're here to stay. I mean, I know it's awfully early, but you might as well throw them in the playoff.
Listen, what better option do you have at this point? Like, you can only go off of essentially the merit that folks built up last season because of just how odd everything has been since the conclusion of last season. To pivot just a little bit, more quarterback discussion, more specifically in South Bend, Indiana. Ian Book, at times, we've talked about it a little bit, looks great and so composed, but then there are other moments where he feels just a little unsettled in the pocket, the lack of awareness that he has for the timing of things. How much of it, where can Ian Book take this season, and where can he take the Fighting Irish at this point?
I feel like you're just waiting for Ian Book to take this next step, right? And he's kind of, he'll have those flashes. He's had, weapons last year in Cole Kmet and Chase Claypool. Those guys are gone. Entering this game, there was only one receiver there were 0 receivers on the roster with more than 7 catches. I mean, they're 4 games into the season, so they're barely throwing the ball. And of course, Golic, you love this, bro. It's run the ball, it's downhill, it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and they have the O-line and the beef up front to do it. I just don't know if they're going to be able to compete down the stretch with somebody like Clemson, even in their home stadium. They're going to have to hope for one of these dreary, drizzly, cold kind of days where nobody's feeling too great and we can just rush the ball ad nauseum and just knock you guys out. But if they're forced to throw the ball, I don't know if Ian Book is ever going to take that real next step and be the guy that they can put the game on his shoulders and expect him to go win it.
Mark, what are you talking about? You mean the weather wasn't always beautiful when you came to South Bend? I for one, am shocked by this news. Mark Sanchez with us here. And Mark, I want to ask you, looking towards tonight, because we got another matchup tonight. Cincinnati in the top 10. We've talked about maybe the opportunity for one of those group of 5 teams to maybe make a splash over the course of this season. They take on a very talented SMU offense at 9 Eastern on ESPN2. What are you looking forward to here from these 2 teams?
Well, Luke Fickell, he recruited me. I know he's got a major defensive background from Ohio State, but he used to come out to Southern California, and he almost had me, I got to tell you, at Ohio State, which sounds crazy, but he was promising this, that, and the other, and I was ready to sign on the dotted line. That might have been the toughest no to tell Jim Tressel, hey, no, I'm not going to your school. But with Luke Fickell, you're going to get a tough defense, and they might be the ones to finally slow down Shane Buechele, who I still think is the best quarterback in the state of Texas. I said it.
Mark Sanchez joining the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. All the thoughts on the quarterback play and college football at large. We appreciate you taking some time out to kick it with us, man.
Thank you guys for having me.
The College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G rolls on. Treavor Scales, Mike Golic Jr. with you, and we got more highlights to get to, so let's get it cracking. Let's get right into it. I believe we have the Penn State matchup. Woo! Let's see how this went down, because we were watching it out the corner of our eyes, and it wound up being the result that not a whole lot of people expected, Mike.
Unless you're the guys at home field, you probably didn't come into this one thinking that this is going to be the case here. You see Sean Clifford airing it out downfield. This was the Penn State offense that had them ranked in the top 10 in the country, what people expected coming back from last season. But as the game wore on, it's just so peculiar to see how this comes up here. Yep. And again, you see late in the game right here.
That's exactly what Mark Sanchez was alluding to when he joined us earlier. The awareness to know to kind of save some time, milk that clock out when you go up. This unfortunately provides an opportunity for Indiana to kind of stay in this thing. And they get to stop there. Penix scores from just a few yards out, and we are locked up after the 2-point conversion at 20. And this is one of the wilder things, Mike. And you got a text message about this.
I can say my brother Jake texted me and said that their kicker essentially mistakenly almost onside kicked it to give Penn State what was a 57-yard attempt before the end of regulation. The potential to win this, you see, coming up just shy of the crossbar because of the failed attempt on the squib kick. And then we get to overtime.
Yep, Sean Clifford to Parker Washington. 9 yards after the rollout to the right, finds his man, 6 on the board. They would convert the extra point, and then Indiana with a chance here. They would connect. And look, I am of the same opinion here. Go win the daggone game. Don't wait for this to get dragged out. Ain't no need to play to lose.
Scared money doth not make money, and you don't have any of it on the side of 9 Indiana. Good Lord, look at the extension.
Oh, my
on this.
goodness.
I mean, that's as close as you can possibly get. That pylon is out of bounds if you were striking it from any other direction, but they rule it good.
Michael Penix's 2-point conversion good, and that is how the upset of the weekend went down. Tom Herman and Texas trying to avoid an upset themselves, and they didn't have any issues with Baylor. Sam Ehlinger going deep down the right side to get inside the 10-yard line, and this Texas offense, when it wants to be, is dang productive, Mike.
This Texas offense, when it wants to, is Sam Ehlinger. Like,
yes.
He is everything that makes it go. I've called him the Tim Tebow in Longhorns colors for a lot of reasons as we get looking and ready to go.
Yep.
Live looking.
We're right back to it. This is our first score of the game, about 12 minutes and 47 seconds remaining in the first. And here's our guy, Tanner Morgan, connected with his fullback there. Fortitude to get into the end zone puts Minnesota up 7-0 early in that matchup. Make sure you log in. Check that out with us. This is the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. Trevor Scales, Mike Golic Jr. with you. And as we kind of work through this Big Ten, first week of the Big Ten, I think everybody was excited to have it back. That Penn State-Indiana game lives up to all kinds of, actually, I can't even say it lives up to the hype because I don't think anybody expected there to be any sort of hype around it.
I think we expected chaos, and we got it. You got Michigan State coming back and getting a big-time loss against a Rutgers team that was, re-welcoming Greg Schiano back into the fold. And now what we're seeing tonight is the perfect encapsulation of college football season. New on one side, Michigan trotting out Joe Milton and a host of new players, and Minnesota on the other side. We heard right before kickoff having to deal with a host of players not available tonight. We were not given a reason. Everyone can draw their own assumptions in a lot of this, but down 2 offensive linemen, down some key special teams players, and down some defensive starters there. Going to make it interesting, but this is what college football is, unfortunately, in 2020.
We got a live look in going once again. This is your ESPN matchup, South Carolina and LSU. South Carolina, man, these two teams, both of these teams, right, like, aren't necessarily towards the top of mind when it comes to this conference whatsoever. I think we saw from week 1 from this LSU program that they weren't going to be what they were a season ago. And that's understandable, right? Like, Joe Burrow leaving is a very large part of that. I don't want to sort of even mitigate that circumstance for that team. But I think they still have fallen short of even what we expect that program to just sort of maintain from a talent standpoint, right?
And I think that's the thing is, and we've got another live cut in here. There's Charbonnet, one of the guys returning as a starter on Michigan in the skill position group, breaking for what looks like a long touchdown. And then a cutback to LSU.
We are just rolling with this, baby. Like this is like better than Red Zone, baby. Like, we got you covered right here on the College Football Show. And look, as we kind of shift back to what that help provides, just to kind of go back to the other game that we were clicking to, Zach Charbonnet, as he scored, gives that offense a little bit of something to settle into. You know you have that at all times, especially that he's healthy this year. And I think that was the biggest difference from him last year.
Yeah, and I think looking at that situation, you count on Michigan to be stout up front always. They recruit well at that position. They develop offensive linemen. And so being able to rely on that while you break in a new quarterback, as LSU also dealing with some difficulties at quarterback going into this weekend. We know down their starter.
Miles Brennan? Yes, Miles Brennan. And look, like, them getting that score is impressive to say the least. But as we look here at the touchdown from Zach Charbonnet, I didn't realize it was long as it was. A little power, and it's run beautifully.
Oh, man.
I think I am slightly turned on whenever power works that beautifully. I just think, like,
power is an A-gap run, Trevor. You know this.
Yes, and stay behind in there. There's nothing wrong with it. Follow the large posterior of the man that is running in front of you, and it typically leads to daylight. It's that simple.
But it is a beautiful thing. So we got that score there. We mentioned Miles Brennan not up for LSU this week, so dealing with more turnover there after they kind of had to recoil after the shock to start the season. That Mississippi State loss freaked a lot of people out. We have since seen Mississippi State also come back down to earth.
Right.
But too much turnover, even for a program as talent-rich as LSU.
No question about that. And to clarify, I want to make sure, I believe it was an extreme, like, lower body injury is all that was released from that LSU program with regards to Miles Brennan being down this week. So we'll see exactly how that unfolds with the LSU program. But to kind of go back to the discussion that you brought up with regards to Mississippi State and that offense that Mike Leach sort of brought into the fold, 623 yards passing in week 1, and since maybe averaging 250 yards an outing. Where are we going to see that program sort of settle in? Are we going to see something in the middle with that quarterback and or even their quarterback sort of situation, and they're figuring it out?
Yeah, so obviously a lot of people were excited about KJ Costello coming over there from Stanford, maybe the most physically gifted quarterback to ever go into a Mike Leach air raid offense. But this is the problem, and you even talk to other air raid coaches, and they'll say Mike's is so reliant on passing, so resistant to running ever, that you're always going to get boom or bust. If a team decides to not do the scouting report and play man coverage all day when you're running mesh, it's that 3-day install. Really easy to install the air raid. Takes a little while longer to get the full complement, all the finer notes of that offense, and they're finding that out as they go along the SEC side.
All right, so we get through week 8, or in large part, week 8 with the Big Ten back. Mike, your takeaway from this sort of first introduction to that conference now being into the fold of the college football playoff?
They are who we thought they were. We didn't let anybody off the hook. Ohio State did the damn thing like we expected.
So you're right. We will expect to see much more of them as we continue on throughout the college football season. We appreciate you joining us here on the College Football Show, but this is not the only thing that we do for you on as far as all these screens that we pop up on between Twitter, YouTube Live, Facebook, and the ESPN app. We got a full Saturday slate for you. We got Countdown to Game Day, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, right here on all those same screens. We got 7 to 8 Eastern right here. You just joined us, the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. And then lastly, the wrap-up, myself, Gary Streisky, Christine Williamson. We are kicking it late night, taking you to the end of whatever action and then shenanigans as well. But that's, in summation, what we sort of take care of. We appreciate you joining us, man.
I appreciate you guys having me. Happy to bump Fitz out of this chair, get a little better looking in
Anytime.
here. Nice and beefy. This set is in the weight room with you each and every day.
Without question. We got you taken care of. Exercise bikes and free weights included. We got you covered. Cardio and all that fun stuff. But there's your Saturday slate. Enjoy that with us. This has been the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G.